I've been doing the carnivore diet for 60 days and wow, it has been quite the experience. I'm going to cover the pros, the cons, the straight up wild effects that I've noticed, as well as whether I plan on continuing with this approach or not. A lot of folks do the carnivore diet to lose weight. I did not. But the cool thing is that this approach has made it easier to maintain my body composition than ever. And that's saying a lot because I tried a lot of different diets. My primary why was to see if I could get rid of my arthritic knee pain. I went to the doctor for the first time with sore knees when I was 13 or 14, and the doc said that it was growing pains. I'm almost 38 now, so unless growing pains last like 25 years, there's clearly been something else going on. My knees did improve via just cleaning up my diet a bit because it used to be absolutely atrocious. Unfortunately, I was able to completely resolve my eczema via general diet cleanup. My knees then felt better again by moving to more of an animal-based approach and being super mindful of my oxalate intake. However, I was still having good days and not so good days, and it was genuinely getting to the point where I was thinking I might need serious knee surgery, specifically on my right knee. Fast forward 60 days of the carnivore diet, and I am so stoked to say that my knees have never felt better in my life, and I am so grateful. I did experience what seemed to be oxalate dumping about 2.5 weeks in because my knees flared up despite no deviation from the diet. So at that point, I decided to include some oxalate-containing foods with the intention of slowing down the dumping symptoms. And initially, my knees did begin to feel better. However, then they got worse again. I thought maybe I need to just push through this, and so I got right back at it, and I am so happy that I did. The kicker is that I've experienced so many other benefits over the last 60 days, and I want to share them with you. My gums had been bleeding fairly often when I brushed my teeth for ages. That's not happening anymore. I was also having tooth and gum sensitivity. Gone. I don't seem to be accumulating any plaque on my teeth. And that actually makes sense because when we look at dental health and sugar consumption, those two go hand in hand, and I haven't been consuming any sugar. I was happy with my skin before going carnivore. However, it's improved even more, and so I'll take it. My hair and nails are growing faster than ever, and I used to have some minor ridging on my nails. Not anymore. They are smoother than a baby's butt. Oh, and I was also getting hangnails fairly frequently. That's resolved. My entire body is feeling a lot less stiff, and I haven't been moving or stretching any more than I was prior. It's sort of like when you oil up your bike chain and you pedal and it's just smooth and silent. That's how my body feels. I think that this is primarily due to less overall inflammation, but also consuming virtually zero oxalate-containing foods. I can sit for longer without experiencing pain, which is kind of strange to say, but I used to either typically stand or lie down because this sitting position right here, it would just jack up my back and hips so much. I'm now able to sit for extended periods of time and actually feel comfortable, which is really nice. I have less DOMS or delayed onset muscle soreness after my workouts, meaning I am recovering faster. I need less sleep. I've been loving this because before, when I was clinically obese, I needed 9-10 hours just to feel somewhat functional. And nowadays I feel fully recharged after 6.5-7 hours. Before starting the diet, I was experiencing watery and dry eyes here and there. And fortunately, that has resolved. Unless I overdo high histamine containing foods, then it acts up a little bit. My digestion has been the best it has ever been in my life, hands down. Some folks experience loose stools or they get backed up on carnivore. I've been very mindful of my overall fat intake as well as my rendered or liquid fat intake. Because rendered fat or just eating too much fat is what seems to cause loose stool for people on the carnivore diet. On the other hand, like you'd expect, not eating enough fat is what tends to cause constipation. I've been having 1 bowel movement per day and my digestion has been glorious. Moving on to the mental aspect, my energy has been a lot steadier. I used to get decently lethargic in the late afternoon, early evening time, which coincidentally was when my carbohydrate intake tended to increase. Shocker. I am not experiencing that late afternoon, early evening dip anymore. My mental clarity is much improved, which is probably a result of being in ketosis for the most part. However, there could be some other stuff going on too, via less inflammation in the brain, for example. I've been procrastinating less, which is really interesting, and I feel more resilient to stress. For example, at times, like everyone else, I have felt overwhelmed and like there is just so much to do. However, over the last 60 days, I can't say that I felt overwhelmed. I have absolutely experienced stressful moments, but it's been more of an, okay, I need to get this, and this done. Let's go kind of mentality versus ruminating over things or just straight up delaying doing the task, often for longer than it would take to actually just do it to begin with. Everything just feels a lot more manageable and less all-consuming, which is fascinating because I've heard other folks mention this too. Simultaneously, I've also felt less rushed, and so I'm really taking my time throughout the day. I've just been more chilled out, and you could say that I'm smelling the roses more often. I've had zero grogginess in the morning, and I found that when I wake up, I am ready to roll within a minute or two. It's like a computer that fires up quickly versus one that takes forever to boot up. I am firing up faster. This next thing is pretty odd to me, and I don't know if anyone is going to relate to it or potentially think I'm crazy. I'm not super keen on labels, but some folks may say that I've had a few OCD-like tendencies. For example, I've had this thing for ages where I always want my phone, computer, smartwatch, etc., all of my tech to be as charged as possible all the time. I don't know what it is. It just bugs me when the battery is down on anything. That is gone, and I have no explanation for it. My watch right now is at 65%. Not bugging me. I'm also a pretty tidy dude, and so things like an unmade bed in the morning for too long or recycling sitting out all afternoon, that stuff would get to me, but it's not anymore. Again, I have no explanation for that stuff. Maybe it is less neuroses via reduced brain inflammation. Perhaps ketosis has something to do with it. Better mitochondrial function. I'm not sure. But regardless, it's provided me with more peace, so I'm happy about it. Moving on to the emotional effects. I have always felt like I've had to work really hard to feel content. And I have worked hard. Eating better, moving lots, prioritizing sleep, reducing alcohol consumption has been huge. I've also been working with a therapist for 20 plus years. I just spoke with them a few days ago, and we do sessions twice per month. I've noticed that carnivore has helped me a lot with I know I have something to worry about, I just don't know what it is sort of mentality. It's almost as if I'm actually searching for something to be concerned about. For example, whenever I've felt really good, I've always had this little voice in the back of my mind saying, but isn't there something to be uneasy about? And I honestly think that part of that is just simply due to a habit of thought because it's been going on for so long. It's been improving a lot over the past 60 days. I'm finding it easier to separate myself from that thought pattern. It's been really empowering. That's probably just a really long-winded way of saying I feel less anxious. I also feel as though my baseline emotional state or mood is higher by default. It's sort of like if my mood thermometer was set to a higher temperature simply by eating this way. I find myself not needing to apply as much effort to have a glass half full perspective. If anything, I feel like my cup is overflowing most days. Not all the time, but for the most part. I forgot my phone charger in another city a few weeks ago, and I'm typically pretty organized, and so when I do forget stuff, I tend to kick my own ass and ruminate over it for days, even if it's something as small as a phone charger. Interestingly, something different played out this time. When I got to the airport and I realized that I'd forgot my charger, I thought to myself, damn, well, okay, I guess I need a charger, and so I got one. It was a very logical response as opposed to an overly emotional response. That might seem like a really small thing, but personally for me, that is a win. And again, I don't have a super specific explanation as far as how or why some of this stuff is happening, but it is. I have been a firm believer in the connection between nutrition and mental and emotional health for ages, but this whole carnivore diet experience has taken it to a whole nother level. So that was a lot of pros. What about the cons? I have had a few minor histamine issues pop up, especially while eating what I'd call lazy carnivore. A little too much pre-cooked bacon, overdoing things like smoked salmon, essentially high histamine containing foods that don't require cooking. I also love burger patties, but ground beef in various forms is higher histamine. Fortunately, it was a super straightforward fix by replacing some of those foods with lower histamine options. Aside from that, I really don't have any cons. And the primary reason for that is because the pros have just been so overwhelming. Some folks will say that this approach doesn't offer a ton of variety, but that's part of the beauty of it because it simplifies things. I have fewer food decisions to make. Grocery shopping, cooking, and cleanup is an absolute breeze, and I just love meat. Some folks will also say that this diet is very expensive, and it can be if you eat ribeye or eat out all the time. That is going to add. But otherwise, it can be incredibly inexpensive. I mean, ground beef and eggs are some of the most affordable foods out there, especially considering how nutrient dense they are. So I really don't have any glaring cons. I have enjoyed every single meal that I've eaten. I feel amazing, and any potential cons, at least at this point, are being heavily outweighed by all of those pros. You probably could have guessed it. I feel way too good to stop, and I'm going to keep rolling with this, at least for right now. I may experiment by adding some low oxalate fruit back in the mix here and there just to see how I feel. I also like play with adding some dairy back to my diet because I eliminated it completely week 2, I think. I might even try the lion diet just to see what that's like. I am having so much fun experimenting with this stuff. I will say though, carnivore stops working for me at any point, I will pivot. I am not committed to any single dietary approach, but rather what is working for me at any given time. I don't care for diet labels all that much. I understand that they're helpful as landlines for people. But again, my priority is whatever is working for me at any given time. And if that changes, so will my approach. Speaking of approaches, I have 2 free carnivore templates if you're interested. One is a weight loss template that tells you exactly how to work out your calories and macros on carnivore, and the other is a grocery list. If you follow and DM me on Instagram, I'll send them right over to you. Just send me a message saying carnivore fat loss template and or carnivore grocery list, and I'll fire them off your way. If you want to apply for one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can click the link in the description below or head over to n1fitness.com/coaching. If you're finding Simple helpful and you'd like to, feel free to leave the pod a review on your favorite podcast platform. And you can follow me on Instagram at N1Fitness, on TikTok at the N1Fitness, and on YouTube at MarcusSadu/N1Fitness. If you want to stay up to date on the newest episode releases, you can hit the subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you found this info interesting and useful, and I will catch you on the next one.